Today we're taking a first look at the NR200P V3, and this is probably the biggest redesign Cooler Master had done to this case so far, at least visually and definitely when it comes to GPU support. The case is slightly larger, supports much bigger graphics cards, comes with a PCIe 5.0 riser out of the box and completely changes how the GPU is cooled and displayed. You can either hide it behind a mesh panel or remove the panel entirely and give the GPU a completely unobstructed flow. I've been using the NR200P previously when it first came out, and I recently moved my system over from a done A3, and I actually bought this case myself because I plan to daily drive it. This is not a full review yet, that's coming next, but in this video I want to give you a proper first look at the V3, show you what actually changed, what stayed the same, and whether this feels like a real step forward or just another refresh. Alright, before we get into the V3 itself, let's do a quick recap of where the NR200P started. The original NR200P was a bit of a game changer. It was one of the first widely available mass-produced small form factor cases that was also reasonably affordable, launching at around $100. It supported mostly toolless assembly, had great thermals when using the mesh panels, but also offered the option of a tempered glass side panel. The volume was 18.25 liters and GPU support went up to 330mm, which was honestly very impressive at that time. After that we got the NR200P Max, which came with a pre-installed power supply, a 280mm AIO and a riser cable. Then came the V2, which was an evolution in the right direction, but not without compromises. The V2 ditched non-vertical GPU installation, included a PCIe riser in the box and introduced a removable backplate that allowed GPUs up to 336mm in length. The trade-off was more limited air cooling support and the lack of a front I/O mounting kit. Fast forward to today and we are looking at the NR200P V3, which in my opinion is another step in the right direction. Most of the changes are on the outside. We get a completely new chassis that clearly puts a lot of focus on GPU cooling. You can either hide a graphics card behind a mesh panel or remove the mesh entirely for completely unobstructed airflow while also showing off your GPU in full view. I really like that Cooler Master gives you both options here. The top I/O stays the same as before, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports and 1 USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 X2, so connectivity is still very solid. Visually the top panel looks almost identical to the previous generation. The case did grow slightly in volume from 18.25 to 18.62 liters, but in return you get much better GPU support. We're now looking at GPUs up to 361.5mm long, 160mm tall and up to 3.8 slots thick, which is about 78.5mm. Out of the box you get a PCIe 5.0 riser cable, and just like in the V2, vertical GPU mounting is the only option. The GPU mounting bracket is removable, which makes installing even very large cards surprisingly easy. One of the things the original NR200P was praised for was its toolless design, and the V3 stays true to that philosophy. Cooler Master even added magnets this time. The front cover is held in place by two strong magnetic mounts. The top and side panels come off easily without any tools, while the bottom panel is secured by a single screw at the back. The GPU bracket itself is held in place by 4 screws and a couple of latches. Cooler Master also includes a small GPU support cube in the box to help with any potential sagging issues. Inside, the layout hasn't changed all that much. We still get support for mini ITX motherboards only, along with an SFX and SFXL power supplies. You can mount up to a 280mm AIO at the top, although you should probably stick to slimmer radiators because clearance is still pretty tight up there. If you decide to skip a hard drive at the bottom, you can use that space to install a 120mm fan instead. Now for some personal thoughts, and a just quick disclaimer here, I am definitely a bit biased when it comes to NR200P series. It was my first SFF case and it's what really pulled me into this whole category. I moved my system from done A3 into the NR200P V3 because it takes up less space on the desk, both physically and visually. It feels more purpose-built, less boxy and generally nicer to live with. And while on paper you're giving up a bit in terms of absolute cooling or GPU flexibility, I don't think you're making huge sacrifice in real world use. I also really like how the design has evolved. This is no longer just a simple metal box with a mesh or glass panel. The GPU cutout combined with the chamfered polished steel around the mesh gives the whole case a much more refined and understated look. It feels minimalist but not boring. And especially with a large GPU like the RTX 4090 Supreme I've been running for a few years now, it genuinely looks great on the desk. So yeah, these were my first impressions of the NR200P V3. In the next video, I'll go much deeper into the actual build experience, thermals, compatibility, and some practical tips on how to best use the space inside of this case. Make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss that. And as always, thank you so much for watching until the end.